Welcome everybody to another episode of Meet the Expert for vBrownBag. Here we are at the Pittsburgh or Western Pennsylvania UserCon, and I'm here with Amy Adams, who was our morning keynote.
Amy Lewis.
Amy Lewis, I'm sorry.
No, I think you just made me famous, so I'm okay with that.
Sorry. This is one of my favorite interview types to do because I don't know a lot about you.
Oh.
And what we do in this interview is really get to know you. So introduce yourself and then I'll start asking you questions.
Excellent. So my name is Amy Lewis, and known on Twitter as Comms Ninja, and I am currently the Director of Influence Marketing for the NSX business unit.
Very cool.
At VMware.
You did not, typically the people that I'm interviewing for vBrownBag started as in a technical background. You did not, right? I
don't have a technical background unless you count my time repairing the server that lived in the server closet of the publishing house I worked for.
Okay, so how do you start in life? Where did you say, okay, this is what I want to do?
Well, I think that I've always been, I would call myself a closet geek or a closet techie. So I'm not afraid of technology. I'm always interested in how things work and operate. I had a Commodore 64 when I was a kid.
Oh, okay.
And my parents thought it was going to ruin my mind if I had a bunch of games. So they gave me like 2 games, one of which was like a Math Blasters game, for a shout out for anybody who remembers that one, and Radar Rat Race. Like, those were my 2 games, and then the rest of it I had to figure it out. So I taught myself basic programming because what else was I going to do? I had this magical machine and I needed to make it do stuff.
So is this like you were getting these magazines that have the source code for a game and you were putting the game in?
I would do those. I bought the books. Whatever it took. I needed to learn how to do it. First, I just had to learn how to code BASIC, and the very first thing I did, and I still have the index cards, was the peek poke thing.
Okay.
I did alternating keyboard. So I basically, by pixel, plotted out a smiley face, and then I ran a short little program that made it toggle between different keyboard types, so it had the impact of flashing.
Very cool.
Yeah.
And so you've always been friendly to tech, right?
Yeah.
But you went to school for?
I was an English poli-sci major, as one is. I started out as a chemistry major.
Oh.
And I was young and dumb and couldn't envision me in the back of a lab all the time. And I thought somehow that's only what chemists did, which is such a foolish notion, as an adult to look at that. I can still titrate like a boss. That's probably my best chemist skill. But I put that to work in the kitchen. It's a transferable skill. So I went into English and poli-sci to sort of do something wildly different. I was at a liberal arts school, so I could have kind of a wildly different education, and kind of went on a different path for a long time. And kept diverging back because I worked at a computer book publishing company, and I understood kind of what was on the page in front of me. So there were hints, of like where I was going to go. Or, when I was at the other publishing house, and like I said, I was the only person not afraid to touch the server in the server closet, or when somebody's Mac would break, we were, lagging behind, and when something wouldn't work, I was the best on-site source they had. So I once did completely throw out the operating system on a Mac, and don't do that. Just
it's like formatting C for the first time. Yeah. So so when I met you, and you've been in the V community far longer than I've been, when I met you, you were, I believe, working for SolidFire in influencer marketing. And when I really said, oh my God, this lady is awesome, was when I heard you on the
Geek. And I paid you $20.
No, when I heard you on the Geek Whispers, which for me is one of the few and best podcasts ever, because there's nothing like it. There's really nothing like it, and you guys run it for such a long time. I learned so much from so many people. So how do you get from being the person that maybe can face the computer to, influencer market at SolidFire, and tell me about that.
So the kind of crux, or the missing piece, the transitional piece there is I was in publishing, and I was burning out a little bit. I had moved from the editorial side to online marketing, because again, it happened again. It kept pulling me back in. They're like, well, they didn't have a website, and it just made me nuts. So I rebuilt the website, working with developers from soup to nuts. So I got some experience in sort of web dev and database and various things there. And then a couple of authors were sort of doing community boards, but they wanted the publishing house to kind of help them with it because they were sort of putting their muscle behind it, but they didn't quite know what they had. Mm-hmm. So I took that on. So I was doing social before I knew social was a thing. And again, it just kept pulling me back in. You could see where this is going. Mm-hmm. I went to a career counselor because I felt stuck. I was like, what do I want to do next? And I took all this battery of tests that was really informative, and I recommend anybody do it. If you just feel stuck, go seek outside counsel somewhere. So I took the tests, and it all came back, and he was this guy, he'd done this a lot of years, and he kind of passed his hands over and made this pronouncement of, I think you're going to go work at Cisco. And I was like, well, that's quite a pulling it, you know. And I live in North Carolina, and it was, you know, Cisco has a lot of folks working in RTP, and so it wasn't totally out of left field, but it was pretty out of left field. And I was like, what do I have to do with that? Like, what is? And he said, well, they all know how to do the technology, but you know how to tell the story. You've got the content side, and he was right. Again, full credit to this guy, because I never would have thought to even apply there. And I started to apply, and a job came up that was exactly that. It was about how to engage people around content and ideas. And I got hired, and the guy said, because you're not in technology, you've never done this before. I hired you because of your English major. And I'm like, okay. And that kind of got things started. And the joke at Cisco is I never had the same boss very long, and people never had me do what I actually got hired to do. They would immediately put me on a special project. And I always took it. I always said yes and that's kind of what this evolved into. So every challenge was like, wait a minute, but how do we get people to connect with each other and around the content and the story we're trying to tell? And it kind of evolved from there. And then I met John in Barcelona at VMworld, my first VMworld Barcelona. And I had met Matt just before at VMworld US, and from there, it was just this crazy idea of why not? Let's put on a show.
So was Geek Whispers the first podcast because I know you participate in several.
That was the first one. That was the first one. I don't even remember thinking it wasn't possible, because those guys make everything seem natural and possible. John had done it for years. Matt had already done his own podcast. So I was the newbie. They were really taking a chance on me. But I'm the one who knew both of them. So it's, again, we each brought this superpower. If they had a lot of other expertise and I had the people connector aspect, and from there we were off to the races.
That's really cool. One thing that I always remember from those podcasts is that you had the hard question at the end. What was it?
What is one thing you'll never do again?
And what's the answer from you?
What's the context? What will I never do again?
Career-wise, we're talking about you.
Career-wise. I will, and I think I've said this before, but one of the many never do again is, and it's coming from a conversation I had at lunch today, actually, that was really great. Don't be persuaded by just the money they put in front of you, just the money and the title. Dig in. Ask a question, talk to people who work there, talk to people who don't work there anymore, talk to everybody they permit you to talk to up and down the stack. Because if you just turn your head toward the money, you could end up a job that makes you really, really unhappy. So it
takes a while to find that out. So
absolutely.
It can take you 6 months to actually say, you know what, I took the wrong job, because you're trying to make a good job and stuff. So I totally get that psychological pressure that you put on yourself. Not worth it. Right,
and again, I used my mentor system there. It was actually John and Kat Troyer who had a great conversation with, and I said, guys, I'm really stressed out about this. Like, listen to this great opportunity. And I was like, but I actually feel ill. Like, my stomach is hurting thinking about this. And I'll never forget, Kat said, listen to what your body's trying to tell you. It may sound so great on paper, but your body's telling you something about the overall opportunity, and like you said, living with it, and it can take several months. She's like, don't try to fight something you're not so sure of. So that was one where I almost went over that edge, but again, good counsel and sort of listening to yourself. So don't be persuaded. Money isn't everything. You've got to do the job. You've got to live with the job.
You got to love it.
Absolutely.
In order for it not to be just work, right?
Absolutely.
One of the things I want to highlight now is I remember very vividly when you interviewed Dom on Geek Whispers, and you talked about how he was your mentor, and you mentioned mentors already. I believe you're now working for him. So talk to me about.
We all work for Dom.
Yeah.
It's Dom's world.
Talk to me about that, finding a mentor, how Dom came into your life, and how it's working for him now in VMware.
Well, I kind of love this story. The true story behind it, we both lived in North Carolina. We knew each other a little bit. And this was before Dom was the Dom we all know today. And he was on theCUBE way back when, before he'd done it a lot. And he didn't have a handler because he wasn't a VP then. He didn't rank high enough to get his own handler. So I was sort of shadowing him around VMworld and helping him out where I could. And I had this moment in time where my actual boss at the time was like, I need you on a WebEx. I'm like, but you've paid for me to come to VMworld. I'm here. Like, do I have a speaking role? What do you need? And he's like, no, I just want my whole team on there. And I thought, that seems strange. And so it was the exact time where Dom was supposed to be on theCUBE, and Dom is like, can you go over there with me, like, and just kind of go over the notes? And I said yes to Dom, and I ignored my actual boss. Best move I ever made, right? Best career move I ever made. And I didn't call him my mentor at first, for sure. Like, I followed my rule of don't say mentor out loud. I don't think he knew he was my mentor until it came up on the podcast. And, watch how he grew his career. He sees the world differently as a salesperson than I do as a marketing person. He's technical, and it was great just to hear choices he made, how he leads his team, what he thinks, how he looks at the business. He's very numbers, and I'm very touchy-feely, kind of fuzzy stuff. So it was a good pairing because I push him in some ways and think about things differently, and he thinks about things differently. So it's been a great combination, right? So yeah, trust your gut. I think that's so he works now. I don't report directly to him, so he still gets to be my mentor, but I still follow my own advice. Today I said you can't have your boss be your mentor. I maybe can't tell him everything that I'm thinking. I keep some thoughts to myself now, so sorry, Dom.
Well, I think I've grown to admire you a lot over these years. Is there anything else you want to leave for people that are just getting to know you over vBrownBag, over YouTube? Something that maybe we haven't touched on that I may have glossed over because I've just had these particular questions. We want to get to know the whole Amy.
I'm an introvert.
No.
It's true. It's really true. I'm a fairly public introvert, I would say, but I will be on the plane with my headphones on, listening to podcasts and not communicating with others. So,
chocolate.
Yeah, yes, wishing that I could eat some chocolate. Right. I think it's just go after it. That's the advice that I want to share with everybody. I enjoy meeting people so much. I love hearing other people's stories because that's got sort of the other thing of what got me into podcasting and all this other stuff. People are so interesting. There's a great story. Look up out of your cube, out of your role if you can. I love what you're doing. Like, just go out and do it. That really is me. That part is 1,000% Amy. But I'm probably boring and either playing, watching, coaching, soccer, or eating food, or playing with my animals who are apparently whining at home because we have Arlo cameras set up, and so we know that they're complaining.
I can't have that because I would see them and then I wouldn't be able to be away from home. It'd be like, I need to get back.
It's pretty terrible.
Well, Amy, I had a great time interviewing. Thank you for your time. And
thank you.
You're welcome back in Pittsburgh anytime.
Oh, I can't wait. I need to eat some more food here.
All right, thank you.